So what's the difference between a thought or a habit? So if we look at someone eating one biscuit versus someone eating several biscuits, what's the difference, do you think, between a thought or a habit?
A habit's something you don't even think about.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Exactly. So a habit is something that you literally do without thinking. So it's not something you do occasionally, and it's certainly not something you do just for the first time. It's something that you've done so many times, like our footprints across the field, that you just literally bang, you're there. There's no, not even a moment's contemplation. You just do it. So what happens when people eat biscuits is that they tend to, as a habit, is that they tend to eat more and more and more. So many people, when I speak to, whether it's a biscuit or a Jaffa cake or cheese or whatever, don't just have one. If it's a habit, it's normally more than one and more than one and more than one and more than one. So we really need to understand that if you just have a thought, I will have a biscuit occasionally, there's no one food that if you eat it once, you're going to suddenly become overweight and unhealthy. It's the ones that become a habit. Those are the ones, the compound effect of repeating that choice to have a biscuit. And very rarely is there just one food habit, if ever, that makes somebody fat or overweight. You know, I'm sure I've never worked with anybody who's got the perfect diet except for they eat biscuits, or the perfect diet except they have a pizza every Friday. So normally there's quite a few habits in this little group, and when they're repeated enough, then you literally wear those habits. Because if you go anywhere, if we went and sat in the local restaurant or in the local park or anywhere and looked around, even without speaking to anybody, you could have a good look at somebody and have a pretty good idea of what their food and lifestyle habits are. Because you wear them. You literally wear your food habits. Your relationship with food is visible to everybody, and we can try and hide it with baggy clothes and always wear black and all the rest of it, but it is visible. So when you really go inside and start to pay attention to your own food choices and start thinking, well, is that a choice or is that a habit? That's a really good place to start when you're looking at your whole relationship with food. Of all my food choices, how many are habits and how many are choices? And there's lots of different research along the lines of that we eat the same food 80% of the time. And I think for some people it's more. You know, many people have the same, let's say, 8 or 9 meals, sometimes less, that they cook all the time. They never cook anything other than those 8 or 9 meals. So they might have, I don't know, spaghetti bolognese on a Monday and fish pie every Tuesday and bangers and mash on a Wednesday. And the following week that might be on a different day, but those 3 meals will fit. So if you think about your own food choices, how varied is it? So just on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is, I rarely eat the same thing twice within a 2 or 3 week period, what do you think, if that would give you a maximum score of 10 out of 10, is that you eat different things all the time and you eat seasonal and you really mix it up. So if that's 10 out of 10, and 1 out of 10 is no, I've got my half a dozen things, where would you score yourselves out of interest, 1 to 10? Somewhere in the middle. 5, yeah. 2, yeah. And again, back to where we were, why do you think that is?
Habit.
Yeah, it's because it's easy, because we've got neurological maps and your brain is always looking for the easiest route. It likes most recently opened in terms of your brain as a computer. It loves that concept because it's easy. And the brain doesn't do this because it's lazy. It does it because it's efficient. And there's a big difference. So why do we need our brain to be that efficient that we chunk everything down? Well, firstly, because if we didn't have habits, we'd have to learn to drive every time we got in the car. And I don't know about you, but I did not find that the most enjoyable process. You know, it's one of those gotta be done things. And you sit there and you think, well, I'm gonna this, and he's telling me to listen, mirror clutch maneuver, and I've got to listen, and I've got to feel the bite, and I've got to do that without looking because I'm looking in the mirror to see what's coming behind me, and my hands must be like, that's a lot to process. Imagine if you had to do that every time you got in the car. So we need to be able to chunk down and have these maps. When we are hunter-gatherers, and remember, we have the same physiology and neurology as when we were hunter-gatherers, and in certain parts of the world, we still are hunter-gatherers as a human race. We need to know that if we're out hunting and gathering, and we suddenly see a saber-toothed tiger or whatever coming towards us, we need to get back to our cave, we are going to go the way we know. We're not going to think, I wonder if that way will be shorter. That might be, he might not see me as well if I go that way. You're going to go the way you know because you've done it and you've got evidence it works. You don't know if it works the best, but you know it works. And in that moment, that's all you need to know is I'm going to do that because that's worked in the past. I'm not going to stop and question, is it relevant now? So this is why the brain has to chunk down. And what happens every night when you sleep is that you have effectively neurological dustbin men that come along and look at all the new maps that you've created that day and clear out any of them that it doesn't think are important. So when you create a map that's important, we need to make sure that we effectively put a big neurological sticker in it so that when the bin men come around when you're asleep, it keeps that map. We need to be able to say to your brain, keep this one. And that's one of the ways that guided meditation or hypnosis or any of the self-hypnosis or all the other things that you do, that's one of the reasons they're so important, is that you can repeat it and go into your unconscious mind, which we're going to look at how to do, and really flag those maps so that your unconscious knows, I need to keep this. I need to really pay attention to this one. Because otherwise you'd learn really great stuff and then wake up tomorrow and have to learn it all again. So the reason we remember how to drive is because we know it's useful and we've marked it and we've flagged it as, yeah, that's information that I need to keep. So again, when I said to you before we started, really make a decision, what do I want to get out of this program? So that even from the get-go, your brain is starting to go, I need to keep that. I need to keep that. And don't worry about thinking, can I keep everything? I promise you, you can. Not hold it in your conscious thinking all the time, but your unconscious will process everything you need to change.